Right, so in this video we're going to look at something that my students have been asking me quite a lot, which is how do I get my HTML page to connect to ChatGPT or the OpenAI API. So what I've done is I've actually given you the code as a link in my description to this video to two different HTML templates that are as simple as we possibly can get them. This first one is going to allow you to do this. Let me just show you a demo. Basically just recreate ChatGPT but in your own HTML web page that you have written yourself. So we can ask a question like, I don't know, what are people's favorite colors? I don't know why that came to mind, but nice sort of open question. And then now we can ask much more interesting questions than that would give a longer response, but this is actually coming from OpenAI API. So the same technology that ChatGPT would use, a large language model, but we're not building our own large language model. We're just using the one that's already built by OpenAI and just connecting to it through our web page. And then we'll look at another variation of that where we actually put some questions in that are drop-down menu. This might be more useful depending on what website you're trying to build. So instead of an open sort of text box that the user can type in anything, it's got specific questions. The user answers based on the questions that are there and then presses submit. In this case, it's a personality type sort of test. And then it produces a response about their personality, in this example, based on the options that they've selected. So we'll look at how to do that. But of course, when we're doing this, we need an API key to connect to the OpenAI API. So you will need to generate your API key with your OpenAI account. And if you're not sure how to do that, there are plenty of tutorials online and you can just look it up, or you can even ask ChatGPT how to do it. But you'll need to log into OpenAI and you will need your OpenAI key and you'll need to paste it into this part of the code. So because that is not particularly secure, if you're putting that online, in fact it's not secure at all, please don't ever put your API key online, not even onto GitHub or anything. What we'll also do in this tutorial is we'll also look at just how to use Vercel, this platform, to actually deploy your web page once you've created it so that it can be public and online, but your API key is nice and secure and hidden from public viewing, which is very important. So firstly, let's just quickly go through the code for the first example. This is on my GitHub account. I'm giving you the code for free, so we won't sort of go through it line by line. I won't type it all out for you. Interestingly, in the old days, by which I mean 6 months ago, I would have asked my students to have really, practiced typing all of this out and understanding each and every line. But in the days of AI and code being written for you, then getting a general understanding of the code so that you know that you're in control of it is important. But some of the basic stuff can now be written out for you by various tools. So I'm not going to emphasize that quite so much in this video. Just come to my GitHub, copy the code, and put it into Visual Studio. Of course, you are going to need, like I mentioned before, your API key, and you'll need to take this out and put your API key in there, being sure to keep these quote marks in. But without going through and typing out everything, let's just have a quick look at what the code does. So the basic boilerplate, and then I've got all the CSS here. We'll ignore the CSS for now. We'll come back to that shortly. Then just a heading saying whatever you want. In this case, it's just ask me a question. So that's just what this part is here, and you could change that to whatever you want. And then there's the input field and the submit button, and then a space for the response to show up in. So that's our HTML, the input field with the IDs, the button again with an ID, and this space which has got an ID as being result, which is where we can tell our code to put the result once it is given back to us from OpenAI. So what we're using here is Axios, and Axios, we're using the CD in here to connect to Axios, and what that does is it makes the HTTP requests just that much easier. So it's code that is simple as possible using Axios to get the request from the front end, from the user, send it to the servers at OpenAI, and to bring back the response to us. But what's really cool about that is that the data that we send to OpenAI, we can actually customize and make our own a little bit. So we've got these options of which particular OpenAI model we want to use. So obviously GPT-4o at the moment is the most up-to-date one. I use GPT 3.5 because it's just as good for what I'm doing in this sort of example, and it's a little bit cheaper. So no need to use 4o for this particular example, but of course you can change this to whatever model. If you look on the OpenAI website, you can have different models of the service that you want to use. And then this is the default role of the chatbot. And you can change that though to whatever you want, and that's where it starts to get a little bit more fun. So for example, in this other example where I've used questions in a drop-down menu for personality type, instead of just saying you are a helpful assistant, I've changed that to say you're an experienced psychologist with specialist knowledge in personality types, summarize the user's personality based on their answers, and elaborate, etc., etc. So you can change this to whatever you want. I had a student saying that it was a fashion assistant, and they created a website with different questions designed to show the user their style and what clothes they would wear at particular seasons, etc. So you can change this to whatever you want. And what we're getting here is the user's message to pass to the OpenAI API as a request. But like we've done in this other example, you can also actually summarize the results of summarize the results of these questions. You get the user responses from the questions, and then what you can do in the code is pass all those user responses together to OpenAI API and get that data going in as a request to the API, and then getting the response back based on the instructions that you've given it. So this part here is the fun part, really, this fetch completion function, which takes in the user's information and sends it to OpenAI and then gives you a response back. And then here we just have the function that is taking that response and showing it, I guess, in the web page, putting it in this particular part of the HTML that we've set aside for showing the result. So you'll see that this result constant actually comes from the response that we're getting back from the OpenAI API, which is a fun thing to say, OpenAI API, so practice saying that out loud, it's lots of fun. But if I were just to show you, if I go to the console here, if I expand out this response that we got from the API, you've got this object here, and inside that we've got these choices. The first one, item 0, if we expand on that, we've got this message that comes back from our server, and that is the message here, which shows up in our field. So you can see there's actually a lot of data, a lot of extra data, heaps of data that comes back from ChatGPT or the OpenAI servers. But what we're doing with this part of the code here is we're saying we're going to get that data, we're going to get the choices part, we're going to get item 0 of that, and we're going to get the message part of it, and we're going to get the content out of that message. So this is just being really specific about which part of the data we're getting back from OpenAI we want to actually show on our web page. So that's what that bit's about. Okay, so what you can do is you can put your API key in here and you can give this a go and try it out locally. Now please, emphasizing the locally. If you don't know what that means, it means do it on your own computer. Don't connect it to the internet. Please don't upload it anywhere. Don't upload it onto GitHub. For goodness sake, don't deploy it and make it public, because then other people will be able to see your API key, and whatever money you've put on your account, they'll be able to use all of that. And, you know, it's just never good to have your API keys exposed on the internet anyway. So if step 1, play around with it, use it, have some fun trying it out. You can also change the CSS. I like to change the CSS by just using ChatGPT, sort of lazy way. What you can do, if you don't like my CSS there, just delete it all. And then leave those style tags blank. Copy all of this, use ChatGPT, you may as well, It's 2025. Just paste in the code as it is, making sure you do not put your API key in here. Don't put your API key even up to ChatGPT. Don't let anyone see it. And what you can do is you can say, well, you can attach the code as well as a document, but I can say, please write some CSS to go, in the code below. And then you just tell it what sort of style you want. So just say, I'd like the style, and then you can be as accurate or take as much time with these sorts of prompting as you want. But just as a quick example, cut a style to be like a children's cartoon, or whatever aesthetic you're going for. Let's make it nice and fun and good for teaching. Let's just see what it comes up with. And it's given us this code here. Just notice, it depends on the response, but notice that this one has only given us what's in the style tag, so it hasn't actually rewritten the whole code for us. So if I copy all of that, what I can do is come back to what I had, and then just take these style tags and replace them with the CSS that ChatGPT gave me, and based on the styles I asked it for. And then well, you don't have to like it, but now if I say where are most people in the world who code to be found? Don't know why that's an important question, but we can ask that. Oh, and of course it's not giving me the data because I haven't put the API key in there, so you'd need the API key. But that gives you an idea of the styling. Nice and easy using ChatGPT. Just say, here's the code, give me some new style. Of course, that doesn't give you too much control. Learn CSS and be much more skilled with it than that if that's something that you're wanting to develop for yourself. But if you want a quick and easy thing, large language models for a basic page like this don't do a bad job, really. So if you're looking at the code for the one with the questions have got drop-down menus in the example that I've used. So tinker around with it, change these questions, change the possible responses. You can even add more than 3 if you want to by just copying and pasting these lines and adding an extra question. So play around with it to get it working in the way that you want it to. Of course, you don't need to give the chatbot the instructions that it's an experienced psychologist. You could change that to whatever you want. So the reason I'm giving you this code for free is so that you can play around with trying different things with it and play around with the fun stuff without having to worry too much about the rest of the code that's all there for you. And you can really customize how that chatbot works within your own website and how you want it to work, how it's going to be best for your users, depending on what your website's about and who your users are. So once you've done that, and again, emphasize, do it locally, don't ever put this online with your API key. Once you're ready, then let's look now at Vercel and how we can use the Vercel platform to actually deploy this online so you can have a published website, but keeping the API key hidden and secure. So to do this, I've made another GitHub repository here in my GitHub called OpenAI Deploy. And that's where you'll see it's structured just slightly differently. So a lot of the code is the same. I'm using my just general question one here where I've got the open input field where they can just type in input in the input field there. So that's the more basic version. And that's the index.html. So very similar to what I had before. You'll just see that a lot of the JavaScript has been taken out. And what I've done is I've put that same JavaScript, the one that really works on the server-side stuff, and I've put it into a folder called API. And in that API folder, then I've got this openai.js file, which is where the actual object is contained, but for the server. So I'm keeping it separate. And you'll notice I still don't have the OpenAI key in there in the code that's visible in the GitHub repository, because obviously that still wouldn't be secure. So even though I'm putting it in a different folder, that doesn't keep it safe. But what it does is it allows me to have this environment variable where I'm going to use Vercel to help keep that hidden and secure. But in order to make that work, I do just need it structured like this. So in my main repository, in the root of it, I've got the index.html, and then I've got this folder called API, and Vercel knows what to do with that. It knows how to find the code in there and to replace that variable with my API key once I've put it into Vercel, which I'll show you shortly. But if you're curious as to how I create a folder like this in GitHub, I just go add new file, create a new file, and then when I'm making that file, I just type the name of the folder that I want to appear, and then / after that, and then that / after the name of the folder, it's going to interpret that to be, okay, this is now we're inside the folder, and then I can put the name of whatever file I want. So I don't need to do that again, but that's how you'd create a new folder in a GitHub repository. So with that structurally set up, I can now go to Vercel. So you'll need to sign up for a Vercel account. It is free, but I highly recommend that you connect your Vercel account to your GitHub repository. So sign up with GitHub is the easiest way to do it. So once you've created your GitHub repository in a folder structure like this, and you can copy my code exactly if you want to as a starting point, create that folder, create the structure of it, make sure you know what the name of the repository is, and then sign up to create a new account, sign up with GitHub, and then once you're into Vercel and you've signed up, you can import a project using a repository from GitHub. That's the top option there, so click import. And now I've already enabled these repositories to be available, but if it was a different one, a different repository, it might not show up. It depends how you've configured it. So it'll ask you to do this when you first connect your GitHub repository to your Vercel account. But to give you an idea what that looks like, it'll look like this, and we could say, yes, I want it to have access to all repositories, or we could say I only want it to select certain ones, and then you could select a particular repository that you want it to have access to. So I've just said I only want to select certain repositories, so this one and that one, and that's been done, which means that I can now search for my OpenAI deploy project, and I can import that into Vercel. It's so easy and so great. So all I need to do now is add my environment variables. And I've got two things here. I've got the key and the value. The value is obviously the actual OpenAI API key that you will have got from your OpenAI account. But the key is, if you go back to your code, you can see it's got it here. So I've got this environment variable and it's looking for this key. And it's just called OpenAI key is what it's been called in this code. So we can go to Vercel, we can put that in, and then you just paste your OpenAI key in there. And once that's done, you hit deploy, and it's literally that easy. So I've hit deploy, and it's building what it needs to build, and it's creating a domain name for me, and it's deployed it. As simple as that, easy as that. So if I continue to the dashboard, you can see that's the deployment sort of URL, but this is the actual domain that it's made. So let's see if that's working already. I might just actually copy the link address here and go to a different browser and paste that in. And there it is. So if I ask it a question, why is the sky blue? And press submit, then it gives me an answer. And that is public online. But even though I can take this URL and send it to my friends or post it on social media, whatever I want to do, you could even create your own domain, make it a custom domain, and use it for your own website or your business or whatever. If you want a chatbot on your business website, you can do that knowing that the API key for your OpenAI account is secure and hidden and not publicly visible on GitHub or on your code if we were to inspect it. So if we were to look at this code and have a look at the code that's there, even if we were to expand the script, we're not going to see the OpenAI key in there. So that's obviously a starting point. Obviously, there's a lot more that you can do with using the OpenAI key, but you've got a bit more control if you're actually coding and creating the web page yourself. So yeah, there's some no-code options for connecting, but how great is it to be able to actually code your own website, be in control of the code, and connect to AI and all the power of AI that you can now harness and use on your own website. So have some fun.